Hello. Thank you. It's great to be in Brevard County. God bless you guys. Thank you so much. Well, we've got some good stuff today, and we're thankful for you to come. I'm also very excited that we've got an all-star cast with us today. We have our Attorney General, Ashley Moody, with us. We have your Sheriff, Wayne Ivey. We're going to hear from some folks about what we're doing today. We have FDLE Special Agent Danny Wallace. We have Brevard County Sheriff Deputy Josh Chamberlain. We're also joined by Jeff and Karen Buck, who are going to tell their story. And then we've got some legislators who were involved in making this happen today. We have Senator John Martin, Representatives Garrison, Abbott, and Baker, and we want to thank you for your work and thank you for coming here. Before I get into today's stuff, sometimes you got to put a little flavor on some things that have happened that may not get the attention they deserve. You know, we will have different things that we do, and anytime we enact anything, you know, you have these groups that sue, right? And they go to try to find favorable forums, and so they will go and they will get a ruling, and the media makes a huge deal of it, but we know the ruling is not good, and we know we'll win on appeal. So, you know, we banned sanctuary cities in Florida, and it was the right thing to do. Well, you had groups that sued on this, and they got this decision from this judge, which was outrageous, saying somehow you can't ban sanctuary cities, and so we appealed that, and I think a couple weeks ago, the appeals court reversed that and said you can ban sanctuary cities, and so we won that appeal. And then, 2021, we passed the most sweeping election integrity legislation in the country, SB 90. And that did things like ban Zuckerbucks, it banned ballot harvesting, it did things like no, you can't have drop boxes in the middle of town just sitting there. And so really, I think from soup to nuts, the strongest in the country. And that was ruled problematic by a judge. And we knew that wasn't something that made a lot of sense. And so the media made a huge deal about that. And it was appealed. And then last week, what happened? The appeals court reversed the judge and upheld our law. So at the end of the day, I mean, you know, we've got a pretty good track record on this stuff. We take these responsibilities very seriously, but you don't get as much media attention when they revert. They love the judges who will go against anything we're doing, and they try to treat them as heroes. But the minute you have other judges that reverse that, then it's something like doesn't even merit a mention. So I think it's worth meriting the mention on some of these cases, and to know that we are winning on these appeals, and we'll continue to do that as ever the case may be. Another way we're winning is we've really stood out in our state compared to many other states, unfortunately, in the country, as being a proud law and order state. We want to make sure that we have safe communities. And so right now, Florida's crime rate is at a 50-year low. Now, that's good, I think, in and of itself, but I think it's all the more impressive when you consider in other jurisdictions around this country, in the last particularly 3 or 4 years, we've seen crime skyrocket. We've seen crime skyrocket in places such that people are causing people to flee these jurisdictions. And if you look at the people that have moved to Florida in the last few years, yeah, we have lower taxes. Yeah, many times we have better weather. Although even that, like some people move from Southern California to Florida. Southern California has the best weather around, and yet they're still moving. Yes, COVID freedom and all that. But I'll tell you, one of the main things that people say when they come is they just want to be in a place that takes public safety seriously. And you've seen what they've done in some of these jurisdictions. It's been absolutely terrible what they've done. And It's one thing to do soft on crime policies, which is bad, but then they compounded that by attacking police officers and making them the enemy. Well, that's not what you need in terms of having safe communities. And so what we've done in Florida is we've rejected the soft on crime policies. When they were defunding law enforcement in other parts of the country, the legislature passed a bill that I signed that prevents local government from defunding the police. Now, they wouldn't do that in Brevard, but you never know with some city commission somewhere. You could have 3 people out of 5 just say they want to defund their police. So we will not allow that to happen. We'll make sure the police are on the street. We also said with the rioting, the BLM riots were very, very damaging to this country. If you look at what happened in some of these areas, and some of them have not recovered, some of them may not recover for a long time, if ever, like Minneapolis. Massive flight out of Minneapolis because of what happened there. We wouldn't allow that to happen in Florida. We had the National Guard ready. We had state law enforcement. Everyone was on call, and we didn't allow that to happen here. But we also understood this is unfortunately a trend that we have to wrestle with. So we in Florida have increased penalties for things like rioting and looting. And if you do that, don't expect a slap on the wrist. Expect to go to jail in Florida. We're going to hold you accountable. We also looked and said, okay, we're not going to defund law enforcement. We'll actually fund them and then some. And so we did 2 years in a row, 2021 and 2022, where every sworn law enforcement officer in the entire state of Florida received a $1,000 bonus. And that's just to say thank you for your service. It lets them know that we appreciate what they're doing. And we made it so that you get $1,000 after tax. So they got whatever, the $1,300 to pay the tax. And so they were able to pocket $1,000 with that. And so that was really good. We also understood we had an opportunity to capitalize on the discontent and the low morale that we see in other parts of the country with respect to people that wear the uniform. If you're not appreciated, if you're demagogued, how is that something that you're going to want to get out of bed and go out and risk your life for people that may not appreciate what you're doing? And unfortunately, we've seen that in many different places. So we said if you come to Florida, or if you're new to the profession from within Florida, but if you come from one of these other agencies and you're qualified, you get a $5,000 signing bonus as a recruitment tool. And we've had a number of them. I think we've got over 2,000 bonuses since July 1st when the program went into effect, and we're going to do many, many more. And we have the program's going to be re-upped in this coming year's budget. The legislature is supporting it. So that's a huge deal. Yes, it is a carrot for people to come to Florida, but I think more than that, they come and they leave some of these jurisdictions that aren't as favorable, and then you see, hey, I get a check to come here. It just shows you that the community really supports what they're doing. So we're proud of doing that, and I think that we're got to be the best place to be involved in law enforcement of all 50 states right here in Florida, and we're proud of that. We've also looked to see the problems that are ravaging our communities with respect to fentanyl. And we have enacted legislation to increase penalties for fentanyl dealers. We're going to do more with fentanyl today, which I'll mention in a moment. But we've also helped fight what's going on at the southern border. We sent people down to help Texas in 2021. Of course, we have different operations that we've done with illegal alien relocation and other aspects. What we have done is we've created an interdiction task force, so state and local working together to try to get a handle on people that may be coming into our state, coming to the border, then coming across the state. So they have a strike force. They look a lot of people coming into the panhandle who then eventually want to go to other parts of Florida. But, they've been able to, just since we launched this task force, they've already been able to bring almost 300 felony charges, 42 human smuggling charges, and 128 drug charges. So these are people illegally in our country, should have been stopped at the border, coming here to harm our communities, and our folks are working to get ahead of this and hold them accountable before they're able to harm any of you or any of our fellow Floridians. And so that's really, really important. So part of the reason we've done all that, and then by the way, we've made it very clear that people in law enforcement, whether police or prosecutors, they have a duty to enforce the law. They don't have the ability to ignore the law. And when we've seen that happen, we've taken action and held those people accountable, and we will continue to do that going forward. So I mentioned the crime rate's at a 50-year low. Overall crime down almost 10% year over year. Murder down 14% year over year. Burglary down 15% year over year. And robbery down 17% year over year. And so that's important. That's people's lives that are impacted, whether it's their actual life with the murder rate going down, whether it's their quality of life with the integrity of their property. And so this is really, really important, but especially given the trends in so many other parts of the country are going in the opposite direction. So why are we here today? Well, today we are going to sign a series of bills to keep the momentum going. You can't rest on your laurels if you want to be a law and order state. We've seen just 5 or 10 years ago, we thought in the United States that we were not going to have crime spikes because, you had crime spikes for many decades, but the last 20, 30 years, up until recently, have been relatively low crime. Even in some of these areas, like New York City, they did a really good job for many, many years. So we kind of thought that. I think a lot of people got complacent. They started embracing bad policies, and these bad policies really matter, and they do affect your ability to keep people safe. And so we don't want to go down that road. So what we've done is we've looked across the country, where are some of these jurisdictions falling down, and how do we make sure Florida can protect its people against that? One of the worst things that they've done in places like New York and in Illinois is they've done things like eliminate cash bail. So what that means is you'll have somebody commit a criminal offense, they'll come in to face charges, and then they automatically get released back on the street without having to post any type of a bond. And so what you'll end up happening is those people, before they're even brought to trial on their current crimes, they then commit more crimes. And so there's more people that are victimized. You have police officers that have to go out to arrest these people again and risk their lives. And so it's created a culture of recidivism, repeat offenders, and a situation where crime is spiraling out of control. So we do not want that to happen here. Now, of course, we're not going to eliminate cash bail in Florida. Of course not. And those proposals are dead on arrival. However, we also need to do more to fortify, because what happens is you can have cash bail like we do. You can have some judges who are more soft on crime. They can release people unnecessarily. And even though our rate's at a 50-year low, when you do see criminals, a lot of times they'll have a rap sheet. A lot of times they do get released. And so there's still that work needs to be done. So we believe there should be a uniform bond schedule for the whole state. One judge should not be able to just simply say everybody gets to be let out. And so if you do that and categorize it by offenses, that's going to, I think, standardize things in a way that's going to protect the public. Now, you can't do that under Florida's Constitution directly with legislation. So what this legislation's doing is it's having the Florida Supreme Court establish a uniform statewide bond schedule by the end of this year. So that is going to, I think, prevent some very pro-criminal judges from releasing people back on the street who should not be released without having to post a bond. We're also in the legislation making sure that a chief judge can't lower the amount of bond more than whatever the uniform standard calls for, because there have been movements in different parts of the state where you'd have a chief judge say, we're going to not do cash bail anymore. Well, that's putting the people there at risk, and that's not an appropriate thing for a chief judge to be doing. So we're making sure to handcuff that discretion so that they don't go in a pro-criminal direction. Now, they can do higher if they want to, but they're not going to be able to go below what the Supreme Court has said. We're also going to prohibit a person being released prior to their first appearance if they've been arrested for particularly violent or heinous crimes. And we're also going to authorize a court to revoke pretrial release and order pretrial detention if a defendant violates a condition of pretrial release. And basically the philosophy behind this is, the people in this room, people are not going to be committing crimes in this room, right? It's only a small subsection of the population that commits the crimes, and they tend to commit crimes over and over again until they're stopped. And so that's what this recognizes, that we don't want to take somebody who is part of the criminal element and just put them right back into circulation where they're able to then commit additional crimes. That puts people in our communities at risk, and that is wrong. So this is what Florida's doing with this detention, pretrial release, and cash bail. This is kind of the anti-New York in terms of what we're doing. They wanted to release. They wanted to basically say that a lot of these crimes should be treated with the slap on the wrist. We're doing the opposite. I mean, we want to protect people from the criminal element, and we've got to use every tool at our disposal to do that. So we will sign that bill in a minute, and I think that will make a big, big difference. The other thing we're doing, The other thing we're doing is making clear that in Florida, we stand for the protection of children. And unfortunately, in our society, you have very heinous sex crimes that are committed against children under the age of 12 years old. And these are really the worst of the worst. And what happens is the perpetrators of these crimes are oftentimes serial offenders. And if someone does if they rape a child, and these are very young children, sometimes like 6, 7, 8 years old. If they do that once, chances are they will do it again unless they're stopped, unless they're incapacitated. And so we really believe that part of a just society is to have appropriate punishment. And so if you commit a crime that is really, really heinous, you should have the ultimate punishment. And so what this bill does is it challenges the U.S. Supreme Court for recently deciding, probably 6 or 7 years ago, they decided by 5-4, after over 200 years of our Constitution being in place, that somehow you could never have capital punishment for crimes like rape, even though some of these are some of the worst, even though you can have serial offenders who have violated multiple children under the age of 12. And so we think that decision was wrong. We think that in the worst of the worst cases, the only appropriate punishment is the ultimate punishment. And so this bill sets up a procedure to be able to challenge that precedent and to be able to say that in Florida, we think that the worst of the worst crimes deserve the worst of the worst punishment. And I think that that's the only thing that's appropriate. So we will be able to sign that bill as well. Finally, we have a third bill. And the third bill recognizes we have a major crisis on our hands in this country with respect to the fentanyl that's pouring across our open southern border. And this is pioneered by China, although the Mexican drug cartels are creating their own more and more frequently. But the drugs are taken by the Mexican drug cartels, and they're brought across the southern border. And so we're now in a situation where we had almost 110,000 Americans die from drug overdose in 2022. Most of those were involving fentanyl. And the amount of increase that we've seen just over the last 5 or 6 years has been absolutely astronomical. We are, of course, working a lot of what we're doing by interdicting the people coming into Florida with our task force is focus on making it more difficult for them to get fentanyl in our communities. We did do last year major increases in penalties for people that are dealing fentanyl, which is really, really good. But we have enough fentanyl being brought into our country to kill the entire American population, because it only takes a little bit of fentanyl to be able to kill somebody. And the problem is, this is you'll have young people that will take something, and they shouldn't be taking some of this stuff. But, these are mistakes that if you or I made when we were younger, the chance of us dying was non-existent. They're taking what they think to be drugs, but they end up having fentanyl laced in them, and so they end up overdosing, and they can die from this. And a lot of times they don't even know this is in there. Yes, some people do get addicted to this and have to go back, but you could just have one bad pill or take one bad type of drug and it has the fentanyl in it, and that could be all she wrote. And so the stakes are very, very high when you start talking about fentanyl. That's why part of what we're doing, we're going to talk about the law enforcement end with this bill, and it's important, but you can't do it just with law enforcement. You can't do it just with trying to interdict supply. Yes, you've got to do all that, but you also got to try to educate people about the dangers of this, particularly young people, and you got to try to help people who may become addicted to this. So in Florida, we're doing all of those things. Thanks to the First Lady, my wife Casey, we have a program in Florida that she's pioneered called the Facts Your Future, which is educating our school children about the perils of substance abuse and drug abuse. And she brings in people to schools, videos. We have different athletes that testify about different things, about how important it is, to stay clear. But I mean, what it is it's trying to really let these kids know that they're playing Russian roulette with their lives if they're going to be indulging in some of these street drugs. Because with fentanyl out there, you just never know, and clearly you wouldn't want to do fentanyl. So that part of that is the process of educating, try to reduce the demand. Part of it is treating people when they're in situations where they become addicted to this. So we've launched in Florida called the CORE Network, Coordinated Opioid Response Network. And the idea is if somebody is overdosed, they go to the hospital. A lot of times you do this Narcan, you can save them, which is good. The problem is in a lot of places what they'll do is they'll take the person, revive them, then just put them on the street, and guess what? They have a relapse. And so then it's just a matter of time before they overdose and die. And so what the CORE Network tries to do is have an intervention to be able to treat them appropriately so that they can kind of moderate their impulses and the addiction and live gainful lives. And so far, and this is a relatively new program, we have a relapse rate, I think, of under 5% of the people that have been involved in that. And so that's really, really good. And so all of that is part of it, but you do need to hold the people accountable who are dealing this stuff. And they need to be treated like murderers because they are murdering people. And so what our bill does today is it authorizes life imprisonment and imposes a stiff mandatory minimum sentence for people that put fentanyl in things like candy that are then trafficked to children. And if you're messing with children, you're going to have the book thrown at you 100%. And so that's what this does. And I think it's going to be a big deterrent because this is not something you're going to be able to wiggle out of. But they will actually put this in things like Halloween candy. They will put it in different things to try to get it into our youth. And that is just fundamentally wrong and it's evil. And if you do that, you're going to spend the rest of your life rotting in prison, as far as I'm concerned. So we're excited to be able to deliver these victories. We're going to have a lot more that we're going to be announcing over the next few weeks. To say that we've been busy this legislative session would be an understatement. We've got a whole host of things that are either across the finish line or are working across the finish line. And I think it's going to end up having been the most productive, I mean, really even since the election, because we did special sessions in December and in February, definitely the most productive run that I think anybody is in recent history, and not just in Florida, I think anywhere in the country. So you all should be proud of your legislators that you sent up to Tallahassee, and they've worked really well with us, and we're really delivering a big agenda. So this is one important, but admittedly very small part of an overall large agenda and very bold agenda that's really setting the setting the terms of the debate for the country, quite frankly, and that's something that we're proud of. All right, we're going to hear from a number of folks that are involved in this effort. So first, we're going to hear from our Attorney General, Ashley Moody.
Thank you, Governor. Are you proud to be a Floridian? I'm a fifth-generation Floridian. I have never been so proud to be a Floridian. A lot of it's due to this guy right here, Governor DeSantis. You know, when we stood in front of folks in January, Governor, talking about this criminal bill package, a lot of people were a little pessimistic, I think. These were some heavy lifts, and I am grateful for our representatives and senators here that carried these. Boy, they made the strong arguments in committees and got it through. Thank you for your hard work. They care about their communities. It is bold actions like this that make us the most pro-law enforcement state in the nation, and I believe the most secure and strongest state in the nation. So thank you so much. When Governor DeSantis signs these bills in a moment, you will see, and that will be the reason why so many people are moving to Florida. We are the envy of so many states. Over 300,000 people move here every year. We're leading the nation in business formations. We're breaking tourism records. And that is because they know they can come here with their families, they can move here with their families, and their leaders will make sure we keep these safe communities so that they can earn a living, provide for their families, raise their kids, protect their kids. I'm a mom of a young school-age child. I wake up every day worried about that. But you know who else wakes up every day worried about that? This governor. In Florida, we stand for the rule of law. We back our blue. We stand behind them, holding them on that thin line as they do those jobs. We treat criminals like criminals, and we don't blur the line between criminals and victims. In Florida, we'll make sure criminals go where they belong, and that is behind bars. This bold legislative package is designed to ensure that Florida never goes down the dangerous path of New York or Chicago or Portland or San Francisco, where just this weekend you read about businesses closing down because the employees kept getting attacked and people were ODing in the restrooms. That cannot happen in Florida, and we know that that is because as soon as people are arrested on crimes, they're immediately let back out because of these dangerous, progressive policies on bail. Well, today, Governor DeSantis is giving and delivering bail reform Florida style. And you would think keeping dangerous criminals and repeat offenders locked up pre-trial would be a given. It's common sense. But as we have seen recently, common sense isn't so common in the rest of the nation. But it reigns supreme here in the state of Florida. And so today, I can tell you as a mother, I am incredibly proud of our legislators and this governor. As we saw fentanyl flooding into this country, and we saw the sheer volume now getting into other drugs that's killing people unwittingly. Sometimes they don't even know they're taking fentanyl. One of the most horrifying things that we saw is when they would package it in candy packaging. When they would manufacture it in bright colors that attract children. We saw the DEA warn about this. Florida is leading and doing something about it. And now these poison peddlers will think twice before they manufacture and package this poison that attracts our children. And I thank the legislatures for recognizing the seriousness of this drug and making it a serious offense, with now a 25-year minimum mandatory sentence plus $1 million fine who anyone that sells these substances to minors. And I know we've got some drug dealers out there that might be looking for a new occupation. We know that Florida is a place everyone wants to visit, everyone wants to move, and it is because of not just the legislative leaders, not just because of your amazing sheriff, or the real sheriff, Junie, his dog, but it's because these men and women that are lining the walls right here. We recruited over 1,000 new deputies and officers last year. Over half of those moved to Florida from out of state, and we're not done. We want more to become Florida heroes because we know in Florida that we will always back them. And we can focus on bonuses and training, and we can make sure they have help building homes, and we will keep doing that. But they have to know that when they move to a state, that leaders will have their backs. And they're not having to look over their shoulders for criminals and leaders that are going to stab them in the back. That will not happen in Florida. So you know what today is? It's a good day for our cops. It's a good day for the good guys. It's a really bad day for the bad guys. And any day in Florida is a great day when we sign measures like this that will make us and keep us a strong and safe state. So thank you so much for being here, for supporting these great lawmakers and supporting this governor.
Governor, thank you, sir. You know, I graduated from Clay High School up in Green Cove Springs, Florida. If you could wrestle, spelling wasn't really that important to them. So when I see this sign right here, I think that spells Florida, doesn't it? Because this is the law and order state, and this is the law and order state thanks to an incredible governor. This is a law and order state thanks to a governor that stands with those men and women that are out there on the front line each and every day. And I'm gonna ask our team to kind of echo the point of how deeply he and our Attorney General have been involved in helping us recruit great law enforcement officers. If you look to your left and my right, you'll see a number of our deputies. I'm going to ask them, if you recently moved here from another state, step out for me. Now, starting in the back with Yoon, he moved here from New Jersey. San Diego, California, Virginia, NYPD, Kelsey and Will, and Josh Chamberlain, who you're going to hear from in a minute, Virginia. And all of them moved here because they wanted to do the job of being a law enforcement officer. They want to put bad people in jail, and this governor stands by them as they do that. The bills that are going to be signed today are paramount in helping protect our citizens. I've been asking for this for a long time. I've been asking for judges across the country to stand up and care more about victims' rights than they do the rights of criminals. I've been asking for enhanced penalties on fentanyl. Our Sheriff's Association, all of us have been working together with our legislature to get to where we are today for this bill, for these bills that the governor is about to sign. And what I can tell you is that I can give you case after case after case where criminals should have been locked behind bars, but instead they were out on the street because of being allowed out with an ROR or a ridiculous bond. They were put back out on the street. I can give you a case where our deputies were shot several years ago down off of 192. All of you remember that. That individual had been arrested for 33 prior felonies. The only place he deserved to be was under the jail. But instead, he was out on bond so that he could shoot Brian Potters. Victims right here in our own community where burglars come from other counties. Apparently, they didn't hear the message of mess around and find out what happens in Brevard County. They came from other counties, came over out on bond. They were let out on ridiculous bonds, and they came here and victimized our citizens. I can give you case after case after case. But this is Florida's version of bail reform. A lot of people were asking for bail reform. Well, here you go, right in your mouth. This is Florida's version of it. Folks, let me tell you, on May 1st of 2019, myself, our Attorney General, and our great governor stood over at our Special Projects building and talked about how we'd just taken 3 pounds of fentanyl off our streets. This exact day in 2019. 3 pounds, enough if put into a lethal dose is enough to kill every citizen in Brevard County. 2 weeks ago, I stood with other law enforcement leaders from across this county, as well as our partners from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, who spearheaded a major investigation, several months long, where we took off enough fentanyl off the streets to have killed millions of people. The border's wide open, it's coming across. Governor DeSantis has said, no, we're putting a stop to it. Fentanyl dealers are getting arrested and right back out on the street where they can prey upon the addictions of others for their own greed. He's stopping that. He's holding judges accountable. He's putting the rights of victims before the rights of criminals. He's standing up for his law enforcement officers. They can go out and do their job knowing they have a sheriff and an attorney general and a governor that not only wants them to do their job, believes in them for doing their job, and is going to give them the tools they need to do their job. Folks, when you look at why people move to an area, there's only a few things they look at. And it doesn't matter what they have beside their name on their voting ID. They look at the same things. They look at, is it safe to move there? Well, they can check that box with the state of Florida because it's safe. This is as I told the governor one time, Brevard County is the safest place in the state of Florida. He asked me, did I have any empirical data to support that? I said, no, I just believe it in my heart. But I can tell you this, Florida is the safest state in the country because of his leadership. They look at educational opportunities for their kids. Our school board members are here with us, thanks to him and his ability to see down the road and know that our schools are our future leaders. They look at the economy. They look at opportunities for business growth, how they can provide for their family, and they look at how well we take care of pets. Well, we check all those boxes, folks. So today, I get the honor of having our team stand with the governor as he signed these 3 important pieces of legislation that, thanks to our legislators, our House and our Senate, are now on that desk waiting to be signed, are now about to save thousands of lives. Because trust me when I tell you, keeping these dirt bags locked up is one of the most important things we can ever do. Because if not, they'll victimize again. So, thank you guys. Thank you, Governor.
Hello, my name is Deputy Joshua Chamberlain. I'm a field training officer with Brevard County Sheriff's Office. Before I continue, I would like to thank Governor Ron DeSantis for the opportunity that I have been given to speak to all of you this afternoon. I would also like to thank my sheriff, Sheriff Wayne Ivey, for allowing me to speak to all of you and for trusting a night shift deputy to speak in public. Today, I'd like to share with all of you how I came to work here in Brevard County. I began my law enforcement career in April of 2019 in my hometown of Roanoke City, Virginia as a police officer. I fell in love with my profession. As a Christian, I quickly learned this job afforded me the opportunity to be the hands and feet of Jesus as I was able to help people in their worst moments. As a younger officer, I thoroughly enjoyed the high intensity and the pace of Northwest Roanoke, Virginia. I experienced countless shootings, stabbings, numerous homicides, and all manner of crime that I and the fantastic men and women that I worked with responded to. While I learned a great deal from these calls and managing the stress that came with them, I began to notice a pattern of liberal politicians and cowardly prosecutors who did not stand with us, resulting in criminals remaining on the street. Day after day, we responded to the same people committing the same crimes without ceasing. To this day, I still remember the names, addresses, and associates of our frequent flyers. Unfortunately, this career deals frequently in human misery. Despite the daily challenges I faced with my colleagues, we continued to serve our communities. Once COVID-19 had been in full force, our staffing shortages only got worse. Like many cities, crime began to rise. Then, summer 2020 came, and the riots came with it, which drained our staffing even further. I was leaving my town with my wife to celebrate our honeymoon when I received a text from my lieutenant asking for everyone to come back to our police department immediately due to a growing crowd. What we thought would be our honeymoon turned into me being recalled to work to deal with a violent riot. I remembered items being thrown, roads being closed, property damaged, tear gas canisters in the street, and fiery explosions. We shared an experience with law enforcement the nation over that night, seeing communities we serve turn on us for the actions of people we did not know, provoked by a liberal media with an agenda. As Virginia law enforcement were demonized and slandered despite our selfless daily efforts, most damaging of all to me was my wife no longer felt safe at home. Along with a sharp rise in violent crime, the opioid epidemic began to ravage our community. A particular incident comes to mind where I, along with a good friend of mine, Officer Kenny Bowman of the Roanoke City Police Department, were on a foot patrol of a problem hotel. We identified an unresponsive female within a hotel room. Kenny and I took immediate action, saving her life and getting her to breathe again. She was then transported to the hospital. No sooner than Kenny and I finished celebrating that victory, we learned approximately 2 weeks later she had perished of another overdose within the same hotel. My wife came to me one night at home telling me she knew the Lord wanted me in this profession. She did not want to raise children in a community where she did not feel safe. We began to seek the Lord's will as to where to move to. Eventually, my wife and I were finally able to enjoy our honeymoon here in Brevard County. Anyone here who found out I was a law enforcement officer made it a point to thank me for what I did. Total strangers were offering prayers for us. Ultimately, we began to feel drawn to Brevard County due to the loving, welcoming nature of all of those that met us. I attended the equivalency of training program. While there, I remember hearing of a deputy-involved shooting. I remember seeing the attitude of the public in Florida being overwhelmingly supportive of the deputies involved. I remember seeing the sheriff's famous online statement, "Evil cannot be dead enough." That attitude was such a stark contrast from what I was used to hearing from my elected officials back home. Then, while at the shooting range to qualify for the state's course of fire, I met Sheriff Ivey for the first time. We discussed in depth the culture within our agencies, the public we served, the support from the top down, especially from the governor's office. I applied shortly thereafter and left that same day with a job offer for the Brevard County Sheriff's Office. Sacrificing everything my wife and I knew, we packed up our home, put our life in storage, and moved to Florida to begin my career here. We purchased our home in January of 2022 and have never been considered looking back. Since I have worked here in Florida, I have experienced the total opposite of life back in Virginia. Here in Florida, criminals stay in jail. Proactivity is encouraged to keep our community safe, and most importantly, when I leave home, my wife is safe. I have seen firsthand the difference between a woke state and that of a state that stands up for its citizens and its law enforcement. I know every day when I leave home, my governor, my sheriff, and the community support my actions. Just last week, the Brevard County Sheriff's Office celebrated the 2022 award ceremony, where the brave men and women who I work with were celebrated for their actions. There are more important things that need to be said today by men with vastly more experience than I have to offer, but in closing, I'd like to say this. This state has shown me an overwhelming support as a law enforcement officer. I know across the state there are countless men and women who have lived the same story I have shared with you and who are loving their lives here. If you are a law enforcement officer who is still in love with your job, I encourage you to come here and stand with me and our partners across the state of Florida and know you are appreciated by the community we risk our lives for daily. Thank you and God bless.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank the governor for inviting us here today, or inviting myself here today. My name is Daniel Wallace. I'm a special agent with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and I've been with the agency since 2009. I'm currently assigned to a narcotics task force in Orlando. You can imagine how busy we are down there. There's two trends I want to talk about today that we're seeing, and the governor was spot on with one of them, how they're marketing this drug, fentanyl, to our children. We're seeing multicolor fentanyl now in different colors. We're seeing them as pills. We're seeing them with little emojis on them. They give them names like Fruity Pebbles, and they sell them as cheap as $1 to $1.50. So by doing this, it's getting the kids hooked on it. They're more shown to it. They're getting overdosing on it. They're shown to it more, and it is affecting our young people. The second trend I want to talk about is something where they're counterfeiting prescription medication like Xanax and ADHD medication. So what these drug dealers and these drug traffickers are doing is they're pressing pills that look identical as a Xanax or ADHD medication, and an individual on the street will look to buy something for some kind of anxiety or for some kind of to help them focus. And what they're really buying are fentanyl pills. They don't realize that. They're overdosing. They are getting hooked on these pills, and it's a trend we are seeing in Central Florida. I'm on one of many HIDTA task forces in Central Florida, and the amount of fentanyl we have seized in Central Florida with these HIDTA task forces. In 2021, we seized about 15 kilos of fentanyl. 2022, 75 kilos of fentanyl. Just jumped so much. The task force that I'm on, we focus on these drug dealers and these traffickers rather than the users. And with the governors passing these bills, these laws, they help strengthen us. They help strengthen and support what we're doing with the legislators and what they signed. It gives us support. We are seeing repeat offenders. We're working a case. Next thing we know, we're following a car. He meets with another individual. It's someone we arrested 3 years ago, and they're out on the street already. So we are seeing this, and firsthand knowledge, we do see this. So thank you, Governor, for what you've done and what you passed. So appreciate it.
Okay, Jeff and Karen Buck, come on up.
Governor, Madam Attorney General, and other guests. My name is Jeff Buck. This is my wife, Karen, and we'd like to thank you for the opportunity today to share the story of our son, who we lost in a battle with drug addiction. Tomorrow will be our 36th wedding anniversary, and we raised 5 children during that time. Unfortunately, Cameron died on December 4th, 2021, due to what the medical examiner called an acute fentanyl toxicity. That's how the battle with drug addiction ended. But it wasn't always that way. Cameron had been the happiest, funniest, most well-liked kid in school. He was a twin with his sister. After high school, all the children went to college, but for Cameron, that wasn't his path, and he quit after the first year, and he joined the Navy, and he went to boot camp. Unfortunately, in the last week of boot camp, he was hospitalized and had fractures in both his legs. They kept him for several weeks and ultimately gave him a medical discharge and sent him home. In the year following that, Cameron was hospitalized a few other times, and he ended up misusing prescription drugs. And that led to street drugs later in life. And long story short, the downward spiral, and over several years it led to opiates. And we tried many different treatments and doctors and support groups and rehab. And Cameron went back and forth with good times and bad times, staying clean sometimes 6 to 12 months at a time, but then falling back again. Cameron was actually a pretty smart guy. He read a lot. He was current in the news of the world. He was a good mechanic, and he had rebuilt an engine in a pickup truck when he was in high school. He went to welding trade school. He had certifications, and he really was clever. You wouldn't think that he'd be a drug addict. He didn't want to be addicted to drugs. He recognized the damage that it was doing, and it was too hard for him to resist. He called it his demons. And then there was fentanyl. and that was a turning point. Fentanyl is cheap and powerful and insidious, and drug suppliers mix it with other drugs to stretch their inventory and make higher profits. And the high concentration of it makes it harder to mix in accurate amounts. And as a result, people get these hot pills and doses that are vastly different. One pill is 10 times more strong than another. In his last year, Cameron stayed with us at our home most of the time. We tried to work with him, tried to control it. And he had good days and bad days, but sometimes he was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Cameron didn't want to be an addict. He'd say, it's a trap, and he just couldn't get out of it. He tried to stay clean and kick the habit many times, but he knew it was going to be a lifetime effort. We just didn't know a lifetime would be that short. So Cameron had one of those hot doses of fentanyl on the night he died. We last spoke with Cameron by phone around 10 p.m., and we told him his cousin was in town. Cameron was excited about meeting with him the next day, and he was going to spend the night on his boat. Cameron had gone out to shoot some pool that night with friends, and he got home around midnight. His friends dropped him off and left, and Cameron took some kind of a pill that night, or some kind of a dose. We don't know exactly what. And we found Cameron when we got up the next morning. Apparently he had a drug overdose, and there was a lethal amount of fentanyl in it. Medical examiner said that it was over fast, and he died within minutes of taking the drug, right where he stood. Cameron had been more fortunate than most in this position because he had parents that were still trying to help. It takes a toll on the family, too. It's a hard life for the drug user, and it's a hard life for the family who supports them. Sometimes we get so mad and frustrated. Then you feel guilty for getting mad at your kids. You go back and forth, and we argue with each other. And we want to help the person, but we don't want to help them continue doing what they're doing. So you love them, but it's unhealthy and it's unsustainable. Cameron had limited options for medical care and treatment. After he got out of my insurance, after I retired and he aged out, he did get help from the Circles of Care here in town, and we were grateful for the resources. We just wish we could have gotten more. One aspect we didn't understand was the follow-up support after the detox program he went into after completing 5 or 7 days of detox. It was several weeks before he could get longer-term care, and over those several weeks, the person who was just detoxed relapses. But they did what they could with what they had, and we're thankful. We'd also like to thank the Sheriff's Department because we had occasion to interact with them over the years, and they were nothing but professional and helpful. As for remedies, Karen and I would agree that we need harsh penalties on the purveyors of these drugs. We need interdiction to stop it from getting to the streets. But we also have sympathy for the people who are caught in this trap, the users versus the dealers. Many users don't want to be living the way they do and would change it if they could. So everything we've heard here today has been very inspiring, and we're very happy with the actions that are being taken. My final thoughts on the subject are that fentanyl is a game changer. It's powerful and it's destructive, and it cuts across all segments of society. The scale of this problem is no longer just a law and order problem. Personally, I see it as a national security issue. Fentanyl is a clear and present danger in our society, and eradicating it will require game-changing policies equal to the threat. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jonathan Martin. I'm a state senator from Southwest Florida. I will be very brief because we have some really important bills to sign. Thank you, Governor, for your leadership on these bills. Two of these bills I was asked to carry, and they were very near and dear to my heart. We'll hear more about the pretrial release bill that the Attorney General had spearheaded and made sure that we were on the right page. But the capital sexual battery bill, that's this governor. This governor sees that the judges on the U.S. Supreme Court a decade ago were the reason that we can't put the worst criminals to death for the most heinous crimes. And I want to thank him right now for that leadership. As a former prosecutor, I had the privilege of representing the state of Florida and many victims in many horrible crimes, from murders to misdemeanors. But the worst were the sexual batteries on children. And it's incredibly fulfilling for the opportunity that I have to get this bill across the finish line. There's no worse heartbreak than to see a little kid have to recount the horrific things that were done to them. And I've never gotten emotional in a murder trial, but these specific trials, once I remember the judge having to take a break because he was about to burst out in tears, and this was somebody who had served on the court for decades. I don't understand how we can have federal judges that don't understand the importance of putting the worst of the worst to death when they commit the worst of the worst on our smallest, most vulnerable children. My dad's here. He lives right up the road in Titusville. Thanks for coming out, Dad. I appreciate it. But not everybody has a dad like I had who would go out and protect me and my brother and make sure that nobody ever touched us. Fortunately, we have a governor who's willing to tell the U.S. Supreme Court, reconsider this. We're going to protect our kids in Florida. This is a legacy that he's going to leave in Florida, protecting our kids. And we've seen the news. We know what he's doing. Every single time the governor tries to protect the kids, he gets pushed back. But you know what? He's standing between the child molesters and the wokeism and our kids being victimized again. And we need to continue to support him. And maybe someday he'll be... And someday he'll be maybe having more of a decision on some of these federal judges. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Governor. My name's Sam Garrison. I'm from Godds County and Clay County, home of your sheriff, Wayne Ivey. He's on loan to y'all in Brevard. We still claim him in Clay. I don't know about the dog, though. It's still a little shaky on that. Just real quick, we're talking about some serious stuff, but I do want to say, because I don't get a chance to talk about my friend very much, Wayne Ivey's the real deal. I'm not telling you. Now, don't get between him and a TV camera, because you won't make it, all right? But in all seriousness, that's a man who loves the men and women of law enforcement. He would rather be there with them than sitting up here with a bunch of politicians, and that's a good man. So I want to just know that going forward, all right? I love you, man. Love you, buddy. I was born and raised in Central Illinois, and I preach the virtues of Florida with the zeal of the converted. Because when you have seen a once proud state that has all the natural resources God could provide be brought to its knees by decision after decision after decision over the course of time, to where now folks are fleeing the land of Lincoln, you know how important things like this are, and it all starts with public safety, like the General said. If you got a good job, if you got a good school for your kids, and you feel safe walking the streets at night, you're going to do all right in this life. And this governor has remembered that. He's never lost sight of it. And you know why he doesn't? Because when you go to these places, these big cities, they talk about all these woke ideas as far as public safety concerned. For the most part, they're not the ones having to deal with it, quite frankly. Because the millionaires, the folks in the gated communities, all that sort of stuff, they're not worried about this stuff. You know who it hurts? It hurts working class folks. It hurts middle class folks, the people who need it the most. Those are the people who some of these policies hurt the worst. And I'll just say this, I'm sold out for this governor. I'm just going to tell you that right now. He's the real deal. But I'll tell you this. Governor DeSantis never forgotten where he came from. And Casey's the exact same way. All the things they've been able to accomplish, all the bright lights, all the accolades, all the attention, positive and negative sometimes, but they've never forgotten where they came from. And they are having a chance to have power now. They've got leverage. They've worked really hard to get in this position, and he's using it to fight for folks like you and me. So thank you, Governor, for what you're doing. Thank you for keeping the interests of Floridians first. And before I sit down real quick, on behalf of Speaker Renner, I want to just thank two of my colleagues over there. Stand up for a second. Representative Shane Abbott, Representative Jessica Baker. Now, unlike Illinois, where I came from, we don't have career politicians, all right? We have real jobs. We have families back at home. We come over a couple months at a time, and we leave our everything behind. Representative Abbott's a pharmacist over in the Panhandle, and he worked this fentanyl bill really hard. Representative Baker is a prosecutor and a mom in Northeast Florida, my neck of the woods. She worked the capital sexual battery bill hard. They deserve your round of applause. Thank you, guys. Thank you all. And with that, you've heard enough of the politicians. Thank you all for what you do. Thanks for making Florida the greatest place on earth. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, we're stopping jailbreak in the state of Florida today with making sure we have tough bond policies and bail policies. We're putting pedophiles to death, hopefully, with this today. And we're treating the fentanyl dealers, going after our kids like the murderers that they are. So that's a pretty good day's worth of work, and let's make it official right now. All right. Today is May 1st already. Fentanyl was in the books. There's like one. There's one. Now we're doing the bail. Sure we're not producing bad people. Hey, one of these. Right here. Right here. Anybody else? All right. Anyone else? Okay. Some of the New York. Where are you guys from New York? They have no cash bail in New York. We're making sure that people are safe.
Don't use those to write tickets later.